Welcome to Gyandoot 2.0 program started by the Department of College Education, Rajasthan. My name is Bharti Singh Arya and I am Assistant Professor in the Department of English. Friends, today we are going to discuss about Bacon as an essayist in this lecture. In today's video, we will talk about Sir Francis Bacon and his biographical sketch. Then we shall move on to discuss about Bacon being an essayist, his prose style, characteristics of Bacon's essays, which includes his aphoristic and epigrammatic style, the use of antithesis in his essays, the use of imagery and analogy, his practical wisdom, and Machiavellian instinct or utilitarianism or opportunism in his essays. And then lastly, we will talk about the other writers' comments on Bacon's essays and his personality. So Francis Bacon was born on 22nd January 1561 in London to the parents Sir Nicholas Bacon and Lady Anne Cook. Bacon was a great English philosopher, statesman, a very eminent scientist, lawyer, jurist, a great author, and the pioneer of the scientific method. He was true to his age, the age of Renaissance. He also served as Attorney General and the Lord Chancellor of England. He was educated in the Trinity College, Cambridge, and Gray's Inn, London, where he joined the law program. If we talk about the character of Bacon, he was an extremely intelligent, ambitious, sometimes cold, arrogant, and very calculating character. His spouse was Alice Burnham, and he married twice. Looking at some other facts about Bacon, we see that as a student, while studying, he was strong in his criticism of his teachers, who he agreed were surely men of wits, but never explored beyond a few authors as they only explored Aristotle. He favored the new Renaissance humanism over Aristotelianism. As I said, that he was a man of his time, the man of Renaissance. He was the child of Renaissance. He was a good lawyer and was among the able group of men Queen Elizabeth gathered around her upon her succession to the throne. Since he belonged to the aristocratic family, so he grew very familiar to the aristocratic life and the courtly activities. Once he moved on to a certain stage where he was accused of accepting bribes. There he was tried and he was found guilty after he confessed. He had to be retired forcefully. After that, Bacon went on to write essays in which he shared the wisdom of his life. The wisdom coming from one who had seen much struggle, rise, fame, and the loss. He was a very serious kind of a boy even in his childhood, and he devoted much time to the studies which later grew into his character. Now the question is that why Bacon is called the father of English essays. Well, Bacon adopted this new genre of writing essays from Montaigne of France. Though he adopted this genre from Montaigne, but he did not copy him blindly. Since Montaigne was the writer of personal essays, but we see that Bacon's writing are impersonal, his essays are impersonal and objective. He started writing his essays and he published 10 of the papers in 1597. These essays were devoted to his brother Anthony. Later on, after 15 years, he added some more essays which turned into the number 38 in the edition of 1612. The third essays he wrote, which he named Essays or Counsels Civil and Moral, in the year 1625, which finally had 58 essays. That was the year before his death. He calls his essays as dispersed meditations. And he also calls them as certain brief notes set down rather significantly than curiously. He calls them dispersed meditations as, according to him, they were not organized. The essays that he jotted down was simply his belief. They were brief notes that he simply jotted down rather significantly than curiously. Here, curiously means elaborately. They were simply the thoughts that came into his mind and he simply jotted down, and that turned out to be his extreme popular essays. Now let us look into the prose style of Sir Francis Bacon. He is known for his aphoristic and epigrammatic style. Aphorism means a brief statement containing an important truth or fundamental principle. We see that aphorism or the aphoristic style is the hallmark of Bacon's essays. By aphoristic style, we mean that they were brief notes, or we can say that they were brief sentences that could be elaborated into a number of sentences. Dean Church rightly says for his aphoristic style as they come down like the strokes of hammer. His sentences are terse and condensed, which means to say that his sentences are often used as maxims or proverbs. In his essays, we get to see the sentences that he uses. They can be explained into many lines, and they have very deep meaning with just use of some few words. Let us look at some of the examples of his aphorism. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. This is taken from Of Studies. The sentence is small, but it contains a deep meaning. What he means to say here is that studies serve for delight, they entertain us, they give us enlightenment, and we feel happy and we feel good when we study or read a good book. At the same time, it is also for ornament. It enhances our personality, and for ability, when we study a good book, it also enlightens us. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Once again, it is taken from Of Studies, and he gives us the importance of studies by saying that when we read, we are a complete man. It makes us our personality full. When we converse, we become a ready man because we get to know more details about the conversation, while we are conversing, we come to know and we get a better idea of the topic we are talking on. And writing an exact man. The rest of the residual shortcomings are corrected when we write more and more. Men fear death as children fear to go in the dark. And as that natural fear in children is increased with tales, so is the other. This is taken from Of Death. Here, Bacon wants to communicate that, in fact, he compares death with fear of children. Just like children fear to go in the dark, similarly, death for men is very similar as the fear of children. For a lie faces God and shrinks from man. This is taken from Of Truth. Here in the essay, Bacon says that man is not afraid to lie before God, but he shrinks before man. He does not hesitate to lie in front of God, but then when it comes to man, he cannot face the man while he lies. For Bacon's aphoristic style, Ben Jonson has to say that no man ever spake more neatly, more precisely, more weightily, or suffered less emptiness, less idleness in what he uttered. His hearers could not cough or look aside from him without loss. Here, Ben Jonson means to say that Bacon's aphoristic style was so charming, it was so attractive, and it captivated his readers and his hearers that if while Bacon had to say something, the hearers could not cough nor they could look aside, because if they did so, it would definitely mean into a loss. They were definitely to lose something if they ignored hearing Bacon's talks and essays. We also see that Bacon often uses the antithetical statements in his essays. By antithesis, we mean it literally means the opposite, which is a rhetorical device in which two opposite ideas are put together in a sentence to achieve a contrasting effect. It is a very helpful tool in creating rhetoricism in his essays. For example, setting foot on the moon may be a small step for a man, but a giant step for mankind. So here, the contrasting effect is of small step and giant step. Patience is bitter, but it has a sweet fruit. Let us take some example from Bacon's essays. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. This antithetical statement is taken from the essay of Studies. It is a strange desire to seek power and to lose liberty. Another remarkable feature of his essay is the use of analogy. Analogy is a comparison in which an idea or a thing is compared to another thing that is quite different from it. It aims at explaining that idea or thing by comparing it to something that is familiar. The use of metaphors and similes to draw an analogy is very common, and Bacon makes maximum use of analogies. Therefore, analogy is more extensive and elaborate than either a simile or a metaphor. Like the example, the structure of an atom is like a solar system. The nucleus is the sun, and electrons are the planets revolving around the sun. Here we see that the atom is compared to the solar system with the help of the word like. He compares Metaphor is used by comparing the nucleus with the sun, electrons with the planets revolving around the sun. So we see that here he has used simile as well as metaphor to draw a bigger analogy. The extensive use of metaphors, images, similes, and analogies add excellence to Bacon's essays. And according to Bacon, these devices were important for persuasion. He draws his imagery from nature and everyday life, while he draws his analogies from classical mythology, Bible, astronomy, and philosophy. We also get to see the Latinized vocabulary in his essays. He makes use of a lot of Latin maxims too. Let us see the example of the use of analogy in his essay. Clear and round creating is the honor of men's nature, and that mixture of falsehood is like alloy in coin of gold and silver, which may make the metal work better, but it embaseth it. Here, Bacon says that he focuses on man's love for falsehood and lie. He says that falsehood is nothing but it is like alloy in the coin of gold and silver. So, no doubt it will make the metal work better, but then it will also decrease its value. Let us have a look at the metaphors used in his essays. For a crowd is not company, and faces are but a gallery of pictures, and talk but a tinkling cymbal, where there is no love. He compares the crowd, he says that crowd is not company. A lot of number of people, however may be, a man may still be lonely in the crowd. The faces that he sees in the crowd, they may be just fleeting pictures. And even if the man is involved in conversation with people, they may be just tinkling cymbals, they may be just mere hollow sounds because there is no love, there is no passion in the conversation. Certainly, it is heaven upon earth to have men's mind move in charity, rest in providence, and turn upon the pole of truth. These examples are taken from an essay, the essay of truth. Again, he focuses the on man should make use, in fact, he should be truthful. We also get to see the practical wisdom in Bacon's essays. Bacon calls his essays as counsels, civil and moral. His essays are nothing but they're like guidelines which helps a man to move on in life, to lead a civil life, and with having a certain standard of moral standards. In his essay of truth, Bacon says that truth is the supreme good for human beings. So he focuses on the quality of truth and believes that human beings should be truthful. Bacon's essays are concerned only with worldly wisdom and the art of success. It is said for Bacon's essays that they are nothing but guidelines to follow the worldly wisdom and the art of success. Here I may point out the fact that Bacon's practical wisdom also had earned him a little less popularity. It made his essays less popular because there was a lot of practical wisdom in it. And here, practical wisdom also meant shrewdness or some kind of being not truthful to oneself or he could move to any height to achieve success. Bacon is not much concerned with moral values as with the art of getting on in life. Bacon is often guided by considerations of utility and progress rather by high moral principles. So we see that by the practical wisdom that he gives to the readers in his essays, he also sometimes goes immoral, or we can say that he supports being immoral in one's acts. Now, by practical wisdom, we also mean that it is the kind of wisdom that one should use to achieve success. Let us see the example of Bacon's practical wisdom in his essays. A mixture of lie doth ever add pleasure. It is taken from Of Truth. Here, once again, he supports the people who lie, and he says that just like man loves to add a little lie in the truth because of the pleasure that he gets, and he likes to stay in vanity because if he has to face the reality, it would be very difficult to survive for man. So, a little lie will definitely add pleasure to it. But it is not the lie that passeth through the mind, but the lie that sinketh in and settleth in, that doth the hurt. Once again, his practical advice is that the lie that comes from the mind and just passes away is not harmful, but the lie that settles in and which becomes your habit and which becomes your nature it is more hurting and more harmful. They perfect nature and are perfected by experience, for natural abilities are like natural plants that need pruning by study. Once again, he says he uses for studies also, he says that only those studies are important and they are more helpful which are in which experience is added. So studies along with experience will take a man a long way. A person will achieve success if he uses his experience along with his studies. He that hath wife and children hath given hostages to fortune, for they are impediments to great enterprises, either of virtue or mischief. These lines are taken from Of Marriage and Single Life. Here he communicates the idea that man who is married and has wife and children, they do not take great enterprises or they will think twice to do or to start any new venture either of virtue or mischief, either it is of good or bad nature, because he is more responsible towards his wife and children. The utilitarianism or the Machiavellian instinct that is seen in Bacon's essays. Here we see utilitarianism means that the useful is the good. Once again, it takes us back to the practical wisdom of Bacon's essays. Let us see the examples. All rising to great place is by a winding stair. And if there be factions, it is good to side a man's self whilst he is rising and to behave himself when he is placed. These lines are taken from Of Great Places, the essay. What he means to say here is that if a person has to achieve great success and a great position, he might take the help of the people and he might join the wrong ones. But once again, he feels that once he has achieved the success or the desired place, then he must be neutral. A mixture of lie doth ever add pleasure. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Once again, he advises the people to read the books, the good books, as per their use. If the books are very useful, it needs to be chewed and digested. But the books that are of mean nature, they can simply be read cursorily. The use of allusion and quotations. History bears the testimony that Bacon draws many allusions and quotations from classical fables, Bible, history, the ancient Greek and Roman writers, and also from the collection of proverbs. This served to make his style more scholarly. Like an example, in his essay of truth, he draws allusions and quotations from Lucian, Lucretius, and Montaigne. Let us have a look at the comments which the writers have to say for Bacon and his Machiavellian instinct. William Blake wrote on his copy of Bacon's essays that it is a good advice for Satan's kingdom. Alexander Pope made a more comprehensive and balanced remark on the personality of Bacon in the form of a couplet. Pope says, if parts allure thee, think how Bacon shined, the wisest, brightest, meanest of mankind. So we see that Pope calls him the wisest, brightest, and meanest because Bacon did not hesitate in even while getting the position, we can say that he bit the hands that fed him. Finally, coming to the conclusion, in spite of having an illustrious political career, we see that somewhere Bacon has been called the meanest and meanest of mankind because he was somewhere his practical wisdom, his Machiavellian instinct, all these things make him less popular. However, we cannot deny the fact that he is still the father of essays who paved the way for other essayists like Addison, Steele, Gardiner, etc. Hugh Walker rightly says, to him goes the credit of being the first of English essayists, as he remains for sheer mass and weight of genius, the greatest. Thank you.